All
All
right.
right.
Good
Good
afternoon,
afternoon,
everyone.
everyone, and
Welcome to
welcome to
the
the
Title
Title
IX
IX
committee
committee
meeting for the
meeting for the
first time
first
since
time since
October.
October.
So it's been
So
a
it's been
while
a
since
while
I've
since
seen
I've seen
everyone's
everyone's
faces.
faces.
So
So
thank you for
thank you for
everyone for
everyone for
joining us.
joining us.
At this
At this
time, I
time,
am
I am
going to
going to
pass
pass
it to
it to
Ms.
Ms.
Craybill
Craybill
uh,
for additional comment for the welcome and the approval of the October 2021 minutes.
Okay, hey everybody. I am trying to find myself a place to park. I got stuck at one of my jobs today, so thank you all for coming. You don't need to hear my sad tale of woe, but thank you all for coming. I hope Happy New Year, since that is where we are right now. Got a lot to talk about today, and so I'm looking forward to it. Jarrell is going to lead us through a good conversation. Does anybody have any comments about the minutes? So Jarrell, help me look for anybody who's got their hand raised up. Okay, then it was a long time ago, so and we have a question about the minutes, then let's just go ahead and approve those by consensus. All right, so next on our agenda, we have Title IX updates. Jarrell, you want to go ahead and give us some, or do we have any?
Yeah, I have a few. They'll be really quick. So,
Okay.
Power Schools, which is a system that New Hanover County Schools and all the schools in North Carolina use to house student information. They've been working to update their confidentiality and privacy related to gender identity. For example, they've updated to allow preferred name for various reasons. Since then, they've also allowed schools districts to be able to assign rights to access information for students related to their biological sex and gender. So New Hanover County Schools has restricted some of those rights to individuals in the district to try to protect, make it more confidential related to students' gender identity and biological sex. So that's something that we're doing and continue to see other avenues and tools that we can use to protect that information for our students. Update number 2 is that the Biden administration is working hard on new Title IX regulations. So at some point, maybe by the fall, we will have new Title IX regulations that the district will need to then update policy to make sure that they're implemented. Right now, I think some of our principals, myself, some of our senior staff, and central office recognize some of the difficulties in particular situations involving these Title IX regulations and how they impact us operating in the school environment, trying to make sure that everyone stays safe. So I'll be on the lookout. I believe the Department of Education has said that they are going to release a draft of the new regulations in April. So we'll cross our fingers and see if that happens. With hopefully some type of final regulation to come in the fall, to which then we would update our policies to make sure that we're in compliance with. So those are all the updates in the Title IX world for now. Any questions or comment? All right, looks like none. So in that case, we'll go ahead and get to the Title IX survey results.
Jarrell, before you get started, can I jump?
Yes.
Can we do like a show of hands or or in the chat of anybody who has had a chance to watch the presentation at the board meeting? Can you? I can't see that on my screen. So is that
from what I can tell? Looks like half. So do I need to go over the survey again, or can we just get straight to the discussion? I'm pulling out.
That's what I was trying to sort of pare it down again. That if people had seen it, then we don't need to go through it. But if people have specific, questions, then and we, we've already developed our list of questions that we want to ask. So what's anybody think?
I'll just go over some highlights really quickly
Okay.
and share
Okay.
my screen.
All right.
So it'll be brief, 5 minutes at most that I'll go over a couple pieces here.
Okay.
So give me a moment as I get that together.
Okay. So I'm looking through the list. Looks like we have a good crowd here today with us.
All right, so
okay, go ahead.
it looks like everyone can see my screen. So of course we did release a Title IX survey in November 2021. Mr. Kolar was the third party that helped us go through this Title IX survey. Of course, the Title IX committee worked very hard on these questions and developed these questions that were then presented and approved by the board. So this was only middle and high school survey. We have 13,907 students enrolled in middle and high school as of November 2021. 62% of the students participated in the Title IX survey. And you can see the breakdown based on the diversity of biological sex and gender identity. So I'll skip the participation. The definitions, of course, were from policy and were broad. And the reason why they were broad is because we want to make sure that, you know, we care about the whole student here. And so whether there was an experience happen off campus or happen on campus, we recognize that students can still be impacted by that. We want to know that to be able to make sure we can provide resources to those students. So when it came to sexual harassment, 22 for sexual harassment for high school, middle and high school years, have you personally experienced behavior that could be considered sexual harassment? The response for middle school students was 22%, and the response for high school students was 27%, which was about a quarter. Now with that, for those that answered in affirmative, majority of those only experienced it once or twice, but they did still experience it. So that 22 and 27%. Breaking it down by, in middle school by gender identity, the most impacted were individuals in the TQQAI+, and then females, and then last were males, 29, 26, and 14%. Sexual harassment by gender identity for high school, 47% of participants that responded yes were the TQQAI+ group, followed by female, and then 10% of males only during their high school years. So we next asked, did they tell a trusted adult for New Hanover County Schools? About a quarter of each subgroup responded yes. That was for middle school. For high school, it was even lower, 15%. So when it comes to why individuals responded in the affirmative to experiencing sexual harassment and why they didn't report in middle school, there was a range of answers. Mr. Kolar then took the most common responses and highlighted those. Things such as I didn't need help, I didn't want any attention or publicity, all the way down to I didn't think anyone would believe me. So there was definitely a range of responses as to why. For high school, again, didn't need help, didn't want the attention or publicity, top responses. Another response was also, I feared it would not be kept confidential, and also all in good fun and playful. So that was the sexual harassment experience. Moving forward to gender-based harassment. Student responses during your middle school, high school years, have you personally experienced behavior that could be considered gender-based harassment? 21% of middle school students said yes, 22% of high school students said yes. And of course, gender-based harassment is any type of harassment based on your gender identity or perceived gender identity or gender expression or perceived gender expression. For middle school, that response broken down by gender, TQQAI+ experienced an overwhelming amount of gender-based harassment, 73%, followed by female at 21% and males at 14%. For high school, again, TQQAI+ experienced an overwhelming amount of harassment, 60%, followed by female at 37% and males at 11%. Reporting by middle school students, a little bit under a quarter, with TQQAI+ being lower than the other subgroups, male and female. For high school, even lower, 12, and 15%. So some of the reasons why individuals did not report: for middle school, didn't want the attention or publicity, didn't need the help. Some thought it was playful or all in good fun. For high school, again, didn't need the help or just thought it was normal behavior. So these recommendations are opportunities were created by Mr. Kolar. He listed 6 different things. One was provide a clear articulation of the process, as well as what to expect before, during, and after reporting. Second was student confidence in school staff is low, particularly around confidentiality. Students may be afraid that staff will reveal them as the informant if reported. He stated that we could utilize staff and student programming to counter normalization of harmful attitudes and behaviors, such as the response to why it wasn't reported, saying that it was all in good fun. Mr. Kolar noted that model intervention and bystander behavior through staff. So he also stated to ensure community discussion of these results includes student voice. Also noted to review student supports and services to remove barriers to student use and accessibility of school district resources. And then staff need to review procedures for identification of students in need of mental health support and services. So that is a quick overview of the results of the Title IX survey. And so for now, I do want to go over a bit of how we actually got to the release of the Title IX survey, just what the environment was like for students. What did we do? What directives we provided to parents and teachers? So give me one moment as I pull this information up.
So why Jarrell is pulling that up, I just wanted to kind of guide, let you know where we're going in the conversation, so that you can be thinking about what your comments might want to be. So we've decided to talk about it in like 3 different chunks. One, the survey itself. How can we do it better or next time? And we're not talking about when the next time is right at this moment, just talking about the survey itself and the preparation for it, that kind of thing. Second, we'll talk about the results of the survey. So if you've had any comments, questions about what we need to do with that. And then third, kind of talk about some of those opportunities for improvement, to figure out what our work going forward from here looks like. So Jarrell, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody? If there anybody wants to jump in with process for our discussion, then just put those things in the chat, and we'll look for that. Okay. Oh, now I can see. Now I've got myself where I can see raised hands. Okay.
So first, we want to make sure that, and because of the nature of the survey, the topic dealing with sexual harassment and gender-based harassment, we wanted to make sure that parents were notified of what the district was doing regarding the survey in general. So with that, we had a parent night. Well, not a parent night, I'm sorry. We released a call to middle and high school families in New Hanover County Schools, letting them know that we had a Title IX survey coming. And so that was the week of November 1st. letting them know that we have a Title IX survey coming about sexual harassment, gender-based harassment. And then from there, we invited them to a parent night on November 8th. Now, I think the November 8th parent night was pretty well attended. I think we had about 20 to 25 people on that call. And what we did was we just went through the Title IX survey, the questions, talked about the parameters for opting in or for opting out, and talked about the environment that we expect and what this is supposed to do, what we're supposed to do with this information. So I thought that the parent night went really well. I have heard that individuals wanted more information about the opt-out process beforehand. So with that, the opt-out process was very informal. We didn't actually collect a form in this particular survey. And the reason for that was because we wanted students, we were definitely pressing and making sure that we had students in an environment that they were felt comfortable. And so part of the directions beforehand was that if at any time students felt uncomfortable, they could just stop the survey at any time. So that was the environment that students were taking in the survey. And so in addition to that, we also developed a teacher script and a student video that talks about the survey with their peers. So I do want to take a moment to show that video. And this information was shared with students immediately prior to taking the Title IX survey in their respective classrooms. So give me one moment as I pull up this video.
So why does anybody, if you have any comments now, if you want to just drop them in the chat, why Jarrell is getting through that. So this is kind of like leading up to the survey. I also wanted to just add for those, in case you all have gotten other feedback, is that during that meeting, we were on for like an hour, I think, and we went through the material 2 different times, start to finish. So that because people joined late, it was like a drop-in meeting. So, we went through it, a couple different times with that. And some parents, we've heard are still saying that they didn't hear about this. So didn't hear about the survey, didn't hear about the parent meeting, didn't understand the opt-out. So those are notes that we've made. But if you've heard anything to that effect, then we can either talk about them out loud or you can drop them in the chat for us. So you ready, Jarrell?
I am. So hopefully this works.
Okay.
I'm going to share my screen again and show you all the video. A reminder, this video was played right before the students took the Title IX survey. And for those teachers that didn't have access to a TV or anything like that, there was a script that they read. So here is the video.
I'm not hearing any audio.
You can't hear any audio?
No, I see.
So if you can't hear any audio, Chase, are you able to help us with that? Give us one moment.
Because I can hear you talking,
I'm playing,
but I can't hear the video talking.
I'm playing it. I am.
You'll probably have to share your computer audio to play the video.
Thank you, IT expert.
Great. So you can just start. Can everybody hear?
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Hello, I am Jarrell Lewis, and I am the Title IX coordinator for New Hanover County Schools. Today, you are being asked to reflect on your experiences in school by taking the Title IX Climate Survey. Title IX is a federal law that states schools must make sure that students do not experience sexual harassment or gender-based harassment during school. The survey responses from students will help New Hanover County Schools better understand how often sexual harassment and gender-based harassment happen to students and will help determine ways New Hanover County Schools can stop and prevent these incidents in the future.
Please listen carefully to this important information. First, the survey asks about topics that may be sensitive or tough to think about for some students. If any student is uncomfortable with the survey or a question on the survey, please skip the question, or you can stop taking the survey altogether without finishing. We encourage students that are uncomfortable due to the survey to get help by speaking with the school counselor, another trusted adult outside of school, or visiting NHCS's Title IX website for additional resources.
Second, this survey is anonymous and confidential, so no one, including New Hanover County Schools or your parents, will know your specific answers. So please answer the survey questions honestly.
New Hanover County Schools cares about the safety of its students. If any student wants to report an incident of sexual or gender-based harassment after taking the survey, it can be done through the Report a Concern link at the top of any New Hanover County Schools webpage. Reports can even be made anonymously for students that don't want to share their names. Another reporting option is speaking with any trusted adult at your school.
So that was a video that was shared with our students immediately prior to taking the Title IX survey. In addition to that, teachers were there to read the script if the video wasn't available. So with that information in the background, I want to go ahead and open the floor to immediate thoughts after reviewing and seeing the Title IX survey. I already have one chat that says there was one middle school with very low participation. Murray, I think. Do we have a sense of why, how we can do better? So one response is, how can we make sure that students participate in our next survey, whenever that is, at a higher rate? I think that we've had discussions about this already, and that's talking about the time frame of releasing the survey. So this survey was released right before the holiday break in November. And so I think we recognize, we as in myself, Ms. Crable, Ms. Walker, realize that there is a need in the future to have this survey released, maybe at a better time, maybe early in the semester. But yes, I agree. There were some schools that I was disappointed with the participation rate, particularly some of the high schools. And I think that in trying to respect the schedule of the principals, we allowed them to roll out the survey whenever they felt comfortable within that week that we had it open. And so in doing so, I think that did also impact the ability for us to get as much turnout at particular schools. Though I am very happy with the turnout overall, participation rate was 62%, which I thought was very good, particularly in light of some other surveys that New Hanover County has done and things such as that. So I thought that was really good.
Yeah, and the other thing to add to that too, Jarrell, is that I think with our initiative of one-to-one computer over the next couple years, we will be in a better position at that point in time for everybody to just pull out their device and take the survey. Some of the schools had expressed concern that they didn't have access to the computer lab or the mobile computer lab. So it, diminished their ability to get the survey out to everyone. So that was one. The time of day that the survey is given, if you mandate the time that it's going to be like at 2:00 in the afternoon for high school students, well, many of the upperclassmen are already dismissed for the day. So that's just one of those kinds of things that we saw and made note of. Some of the schools didn't want to leave a whole hour. And we, again, weren't certain about how long this was going to take, but we realized that 30 minutes is even more than enough time, to complete the small survey. So those are some of the kinds of things that we noted in the actual distribution of the survey itself. Some people weren't even given a computer at all. They were just given a paper. So they did it. We stuck it in an envelope. We sent it off to Chris Kolar and he entered all that data. So nobody Anybody who wanted to take take the survey, had the opportunity to do so, as on a device or on a piece of paper that was collected and sent to our third-party administrator. Okay, Jarrell, on to the next.
Yep. And if you have thoughts and comments, feel free to unmute yourself and or put it in the chat.
Yeah.
So one other thing, in watching Mr. Kolar talk about this, he mentioned that some of the students wrote something in the margin, which was obviously paper surveys. Were there opportunities for comments on for the students who were taking the survey on a device?
Yes, there were opportunities for individuals on the device to answer an open-ended question. But again, I didn't see anything because they were sent directly to Mr. Kolar. So I'm not sure what those responses were. Any responses that were concerning or reportable behavior, he did forward to me for an investigation through the Title IX office. But I don't know what those comments were because I have not actually seen the raw data from the survey.
Another question, which probably can't be answered here, but maybe you can forward to Mr. Kolar. The number of students that stopped taking the survey at some point and did not complete. Are there any conclusions we can draw from where those students stopped answering? Do we think those may be indications of traumatic instances, or I know that's a hard question, but that's something as he has access to the data, that I think it's a question we should at least ask.
Yeah, I can definitely ask him. I think he will, in speaking with him and knowing him a little bit, I think he will say it's going to be hard to assume the individual thoughts of students and stopping that. But I definitely don't mind asking him that information to see what his response is. Any other comments or thoughts? So for myself, I think one thing that we saw, and these trends weren't necessarily shocking to myself as a Title IX coordinator. There are national studies of some of these issues that highlight some of these same trends, particularly related to the TQIA plus community and women when it comes to some of these experiences. We know that they're overwhelmingly the ones that are impacted more so than males, and that's the same thing that we saw here. But we definitely just wanted to take a baseline to see what that was. So I think one thing that was definitely concerning was the high level of gender identity discrimination against our TQIA plus students. And so in my time here, we've definitely tried to combat some of those things by making the environment more comfortable. For example, updating the middle school extracurricular policies, making sure the dress code policy is gender neutral, in addition to training in these areas for staff. I will admit, though, that this is a hard conversation for some individuals to understand it and digest. And that is a bit concerning for me as a Title IX coordinator, that we do have individuals in our building staff, students, that don't necessarily understand some of these concepts, some of these reasons for protecting these individuals. And so there's definitely still work to be done in that particular area when it comes to our New Hanover County as a whole. And so that's something that I definitely expected, but it's still disheartening. And we know there's work to be done in that area.
So this was, I don't want to say it's shocking to me, because I, like you, am aware of the national trends, and also as the parent of 2 transgender adults, know firsthand, and I have lots of contact with students in New Hanover County and Brunswick and around the all around the state, actually, and their experiences. But at the same time, just seeing these numbers, seeing that hard data, is pretty upsetting. And so one of the things that I have worked on in the past 5 years is I have a presentation of Transgender 101, kind of explaining basic science behind gender and some of the experiences that gender nonconforming people have. I had talked to a previous board about the possibility of making that presentation or having someone else make a presentation like it to staff at the schools. And that board was not very friendly to these concepts, and it went nowhere. But that's something that I am open to doing, or if for whatever reason I don't meet the criteria to do it, to find someone who does. Because a lot of times it's just not understanding exactly what people go through and what these concepts are. Like you said, a lot of it is just education. And these numbers really scare me because I'm everybody's mom, and I'm really, really frightened when I see these numbers that we are going to lose some kids. And, I know an awful lot of parents who have buried children. And what we just saw in this survey is why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Leslie, that's that point is very well taken, and that was one of the things that we came away with, was that we definitely need to increase awareness, and Jen Tucker could probably talk to us a little bit about that, about what some of the things that they talk about in the curriculum already. But we do have, parents have the right to opt out of even hearing that, so all we can do, is put something together and present it. So that is something that, our student support services group, took away from this as well.
And so,
I would,
go ahead, Ms. Cohen.
I'm thinking, oops, sorry, my phone took over. I'm even thinking just about our teachers and staff, so that we are not having, there's so many children that I have talked to that the teacher is their bully. And, and it's hard. It's hard for a child to report that. I mean, they report it back to mom, but, the whole retaliation, I mean, it's awful. And if we can get more of our teachers and staff on board to supporting these kids, then it's all to the better. And these kids need more people that they feel safe with at school. And I think if we can educate, I mean, some people are not going to get on board, and I don't know what the solution is to that. But, the fact that we have teachers who are bullying students is not acceptable.
So, Leslie, do you have examples of that? I mean, you don't have to share them, in this meeting, but do you have examples? Because I'm always interested when people say about their fear of retaliation. Is like, have they seen something before? Like, what are we actually afraid of? Because that might be another avenue as we're explaining things. So tell me more about what teacher bullying a student looks like from your perspective, because that's concerning to me that you're saying that.
So, I've had students describe teachers refusing to use their chosen name, making jokes in class about trans or gender non-binary, saying things like, gender, there's no such thing as gender non-binary. You can't change your gender, you're born with it. And openly saying this in class in front of students that they know are gender non-conforming, and just out and out refusing to use a name. Now, the Power School situation will help that for students. Also, sometimes when a student bullies another student. There have been cases where the teacher, in the context of witnessing this, laughs with the bully, or blows it off. There was also in another school system in North Carolina, and I don't know what the curriculum is here, in a I don't know, an occupational planning type thing. They said that gender identity, or no, that, oh, I know what it was. Sexual orientation is knowing that gender is decided at birth and cannot be changed. That was in the printed curriculum for this class. So, I mean, obviously that's not the teacher's fault, but that's obviously very distressing for a trans or gender nonconforming student to have that put forward.
Yeah, and so I will say that we definitely have, particularly as a Title IX coordinator, I see all the reports, all the ethics reports, all of the reports about staff behavior. I have had reports of some of the things that Ms. Cohen has shared, preferably, particularly related to preferred name, pronouns issues, such as that. And it is a bit disheartening, but we do have policies that protect our students in this area. We have the bullying harassment policy and the Title IX policy as well that applies to staff and students. So there is protection there. With that, I have recognized the need, just based on the questions that I get for staff members, to increase training in this area. And I've actually had conversations with Rebby Kern, who is the North Carolina Advocates, who worked for North Carolina Advocates for Justice, to do some type of training with our district, some type of partnership. And because of the sensitive nature of the subject, the newness for some individuals that this might be, it's not, thinking about the logistics and how the training is rolled out and done is something that is important. I don't know if just, a checkbox type of safe schools module would be the answer. And COVID made it a little bit more difficult. But we definitely want some hands-on in-person training where individuals can respond in real time to it. But we have had discussions with Rebby Kern about what that looks like. And I do want to pick those back up now that we're basically operating at normal at this point. So Ms. Cohen, if you have a presentation that's already prepared, I would definitely love to get in contact with you, and Jenny Dada, I see your comment as well, to see how we can get this done. Understand the New Hanover County Board also released a survey for our staff that talks about their experiences. And in that, they did mention that they felt there was not enough time to do things. And so I've had discussions about, is this appropriate time to release additional training on staff in light of their burdens already? So those are things that we've had, those discussions that we've had, but definitely we want to be able to combat some of these issues because it's not just students, it is our staff as well, from what I've seen. Any other thoughts or comments related to just one particular topic?
So I was just looking through the chat that we have, wanted to just call attention to Jennifer Tucker said, I've been wanting to implement a training for staff for years. I would love to work with anyone to make this happen, so that, we're on the same page. We got Janie, chiming in that, they have presentations and they have, training that they are also working on. And we really value that partnership with Coastal Horizons to provide that stuff for us. So thank you for those comments, folks.
Yeah, so a next step I think that we all agree on is that we need to get some programming and training rolled out for staff, particularly with the topic of gender.
And kind of going off of this conversation, I just wanted to add too that while this survey, it kind of gave us a glimpse of what's happening in the schools and, kind of reasons why students aren't reporting and things like that. I think the piece that's missing, and this is kind of a focus of mine because I'm very prevention oriented, is it doesn't tell us why these things are happening. And that's kind of a little bit more of the climate piece, is it doesn't tell us kind of the culture that exists within our schools of, why students are being bullied or the gender harassment that exists, what kind of norms are happening within our schools and things like that that might be contributing to this culture. So that might be a shift that we want to look at in the next round of our survey is, looking at adding some more pieces of those questions to it that kind of give us a better idea of really the culture of our schools that are contributing to allowing this type of harassment and things to occur. So less about the, okay, yes, this is happening, because obviously now we kind of have a better idea of that, and really why is it happening? What is allowing these things to continue to occur?
So yeah, those are great comments, Janie. Thanks. Do we need to? Well, let me ask this: Julie Varnum or Lisa Brenner, do either of you want to jump in with thoughts, or maybe some current training that we're already doing that we just aren't aware of?
So I'll let Lisa jump in. And is Tanya? Did we see the time?
Yeah, Tanya's not with us, I don't think, because I've been looking for her.
Yeah.
Because that's who I was thinking would be ideal, to talk to us about this.
Well, and I'll let Lisa jump in, but Jarrell has been a part of those conversations with us already in how we would provide that training moving forward. So Jarrell, that was what he was talking about with Revy Kern. So Jarrell,
okay.
Back to that.
Yeah, so I can definitely talk about, I guess we'll just take and talk about what we've done in general. So, of course, since I was here in September 2019, we've done a number of things to try to combat sexual harassment, also gender-based harassment as well. One of those things that we've increased our reporting technology. So this is not necessarily training, I'm just talking about everything we've done. So the thing we've done is we've increased our reporting technology. We've launched the Say Something app, and we've also launched Ethic 360 as well, that allows individuals to report any type of behavior that's happening. And I think individuals definitely utilize those two things. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but those are what we utilize. I think they've been very helpful. In addition to that, we utilize Gaggle, which monitors all of our student emails and their student drive folder. I'm not a technology person, but their Google Drive, it monitors that as well. I think that's also been helpful for us, particularly combating things such as like exploitative type of behavior, videos, images of our students that we wouldn't want out there on the net. So in addition to that, we've updated our policies and procedures since August of 2019, Title IX sexual harassment policy and procedure. We've also updated our dress code, extracurricular policy to be more inclusive as well. We've increased our awareness, try to increase our awareness. We've updated the Title IX website in August 2020. And also we've increased the branding. We created a Title IX logo. We even created a Title IX PSA for students since January 2020. And so we also have training and programming. I think honestly, twice a month, I'm doing training with different groups. The most recent group I did was with maintenance. And in addition to that, we had darkness to light. And so we've had a number of different training pieces that we've implemented, but there's always room for more. We have had the discussions with Revy Kern, and there is still a need. I was just meeting with the social workers counselors last week, where they specifically told me they want training related to issues of gender and gender spectrum, because that's a tough conversation. I think a lot of our staff are scared because they don't want to offend anyone. And there also is a subsection of our staff that just doesn't understand or doesn't want to understand But either way, we have policies, whether they want to understand or they don't. We have policies that are able to make sure that our environment is safe and welcoming for all of our students to rely on. So those are some of the things we've done. And I think that this is a good time to talk about our student programming related to bringing in the bystander, shifting boundaries, and stepping stone. And so I have our community partners here that will just do a little overview of what our students are already receiving in this area, because we know staff needs training, but also I think the survey hit on a number of issues with our students related to culture and just their thoughts about this entire topic, sexual harassment, gender-based harassment. So I'm going to stop and allow our partners that are doing bring in the bystander program, if you can go ahead and talk about what that is.
Jenna, you want to take the lead for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we began implementing the Bringing in the Bystander program in January of 2021. We started virtually, but have been able to re-enter the schools starting in the fall of this school year. So Bringing in the Bystander is a research-based program. It is developed by Soteria Solutions, which is based out of New Hampshire. It encourages students to be positive bystanders in instances of sexual and interpersonal violence, as well as harassment. Students learn to identify problem situations and learn practical skills for safe and effective interventions. We definitely focus on that safety piece and try to get them to think creatively to find solutions to be positive bystanders. The curriculum aligns with several of the North Carolina essential standards for high school health education. So we're hoping to work a lot with the health teachers and health and PE teachers to help them understand that the curriculum is aligning with a lot of their standards that they have to meet in their classes as well. So we detail the bystander framework and a student's role in helping create a healthier community within their school. We identify some of those harmful norms that I was talking about and the stereotypes that exist that contribute to an environment where sexual assault and relationship abuse can continue to happen. During the sessions, we help students understand how to recognize red flags of relationship abuse. We talk a little bit about normalization of relationship abuse in culture and through media and things like that, and as well as sexual assault. And we talk about victim blaming culture and things like that. And then we talk about how to intervene and how to prevent those type of behaviors in safe and effective ways. So we go through 7 different scenarios, or 7 different modules, excuse me. The first 2 are just really basic background information about relationship abuse and sexual assault. Then we move into a module about the spectrum of abuse and recognizing dynamics of relationship abuse. The 4th one really starts getting into what positive bystanders are. And then module 6, we go into positive bystander strategies. That's really helping them understand how to be effective bystanders. And then the last module, we totally focus on doing scenarios and getting them to put everything that they've learned into practice. So that's about it for Bringing in the Bystander.
So Jenna, how long does that take? 7 modules, is that 7 weeks?
No, we've actually gotten it down to 3 days, 3 90-minute sessions that we are meeting with the students. So it depends on how each school wants to do it. A lot of the schools are doing it 3 days in a row. Sometimes it's broken up over different weeks. It just, like I said, it just depends on how the school chooses to implement.
Gotcha. And this is a high school program, right?
That's correct. It's in 9th grade class, health and PE classes. And sometimes there's 10th graders if they haven't received 9th grade health and PE, but it's in the 9th grade classes.
Gotcha. Thanks.
So I will thank you, Jenna. So I will say with that, of course, parents still have the opportunity to opt their children out if they want to. So there's no 100% participation for all of our ninth grade students because parents can opt their children out of it. So that's something to keep in mind. So in
Yeah, and
addition,
Joelle just made a comment about that, where she said that Coastal Horizons has helped us to break down the standards for the health and PE teachers and now offer alternatives to students who opt out of the class. So that's good because we don't want these kids just to not have anything. And then I'm seeing the comment from Amy Oots, elementary level. I see a need for this kind of thing in upper elementary, and I'm sure probably that extends to middle school. What are the thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we'll just continue talking about the program.
Okay.
So we have programming for middle school called Shifting Boundaries.
I'll talk on that. Going off of what Amy said, I'm Janie Dowda. I work at Coastal Horizons, the RPE coordinator, and I've led the Shifting Boundaries program for the last few years since I've been here. But just going off of what Amy says, a lot of the times when we do have the middle school come in and do Shifting Boundaries, they've already understood it. They've gone through either the Title IX process or they've just commented and like, that happened to me last year kind of thing. So it's definitely already a conversation that kids are having in elementary school. So if anything, Shifting Boundaries is more of a review for most kids because they already understand boundaries or they've been crossed before. So yeah, definitely it needs to be in every grade. But what Shifting Boundaries is, so years ago, before my time, we had done Shifting Boundaries in the 6th grade middle schools with Coastal Horizons, but our way of doing it was we were going in and implementing the program. So it was really just relationship based, like what teachers or PE coaches we knew at that school would invite us in. We'd implement the program and then gather that data and get it back to them. So when the Title IX committee was created, it was pretty much a goal of I can't do Shifting Boundaries all by myself in the classroom. And Jenna at that time was actually helping me before bringing the Bystander came along. So it was just exhausting for just us doing it by ourselves. So we needed the teachers to be trained and to be able to implement it into their own classrooms instead of just us coming in. So as of 2019, we were able to train all the PE, health and PE teachers in New Hanover County middle schools in how to implement Shifting Boundaries. And in return of that, they would implement it in their health classes with our help of course, coming and making sure they're implementing it correctly, making sure they have like any extra questions, or if they're just not comfortable teaching it. And then obviously getting the mapping and the data and all that stuff back to them and getting it to the Title IX department, et cetera. So it's just as hard as having me going in and teaching all the students as working with these teachers and having them implement it. There's still a lot of hiccups. But as for like the program itself, it's very simple and very easy to kind of lead that conversation. It's 4 sessions. First session starts off with boundaries, how we have them, how everyone has them, and kind of just asking the kids questions around what do boundaries look like for you? What are your boundaries? What are the boundaries in school, in the classroom? What are the boundaries that your parents have set for you at home? It's more of like an individual writing down their own answers, but also discussing it as a class. Obviously, everyone's boundaries are different. So it's going to open up like your boundary is different than your friend's boundary, but is that okay to cross it? So that's just kind of the first session. There's prizes involved. There's a lot of interaction with the students, the ones that want to participate. Once again, it's another choice. A boundary is a choice, so they get to choose if they want to participate or not. And then day 2, we do a video called Flirting versus Hurting. It's old, it's cringy, but it's awesome. It still gets the point across. It kind of leads where you have boundaries. And when you get into middle school, you might start flirting. You might start having these closer relationships, but is that okay to cross your boundaries or cross someone else's boundaries? So it kind of just focuses a little bit more and more in depth of relationships. And then, so they watch that awkward, cringy movie, and then we talk about it. they understand it, they get it. It's not, I mean, it's cringy, it's middle school, but middle school's cringy. So, and then by the third lesson, they have gotten comfortable. They've started really talk about this stuff. And then you review in the third lesson, you review the Title IX policy. So we actually go over what sexual harassment is, what bullying and discrimination can look like, and where this policy falls in line at the school. So it's very simplified and broken down for their little 6th grade brains, but they understand it. And then we do an activity based off of that to give kind of examples so that they can really relate it to like their everyday life. And then by session 4, all they do is pretty much sum up the program. Obviously we get anonymous questions throughout the week on little Post-its that they'll like hand back to you, and you can answer that throughout the week if you missed a question. And then they get to color a map of their school. Most schools this year did a blueprint of their own school. So it's really detailed on like specific bathrooms and hallways and just areas of that exact school. And they get some questions on the back that they get to write how they feel. It's basically a community assessment of that school ground. It's really good data. It's defined to that school. So it gives a lot of good common trends on what the 6th graders are saying about their school. They're terrified of 8th graders and they don't like the bathroom. But that's shifting boundaries in a nutshell. The difference from years ago when I was implementing it to now the teachers implementing it is just, I have to make sure the teachers are implementing it and getting their materials and returning those materials so that I can review that data and get it back to them. And constantly making sure, like every year I have to go and make sure they're comfortable still training it. Teachers have changed. So it's kind of a constant shift, and we're still trying to figure it out, just like bringing in the bystanders. So, but it is working with the teachers implementing it because it's, once again, the school culture is changing. But yeah, I don't know. I felt like I rambled, but that's shifting boundaries in a nutshell.
So I wanted to jump in and thank you very much for that, Janie and Jenna. And I call you each the wrong name all the time. And I just call you J squared because you guys are an excellent team. But I did want to just make a comment is I had the opportunity to be a substitute teacher at one of the schools when you were doing the training, and the kids were really into it. I mean, they were talking to each other about it and, working independently and then working with each other. And I was there on the mapping day. So I just wanted to just do a little personal shout out of having watched it in action. And so it was kind of a hybrid class then. The PE teacher, one of them was teaching, and you were just there, as the helper, and then I was there as the helper. But yeah, so just kudos to that program.
Awesome. And also just to bounce off of, it is under the North Carolina Essential Standards for 6th grade. So it hits all of the topics for the health, or some of the topics for health. So the teachers are able to just check that off for the week.
Good. Thanks.
Thank you for that information, Ms. Dowda. So in addition to that, we are currently working on the rollout for our K-5 programming called Safer Smarter Kids. And what Safer Smarter Kids is going to, hopefully if everything goes well, it'll be released in the fall of 2022, K-5. And it is an abuse prevention education curriculum designed for pre-K and elementary age children. And so the education program uses developmentally appropriate information to arm children with tools and language they need to better protect themselves from abuse. And each grade level has 7 to 10 lessons taught by school counselors. So what we're doing currently is we're going through all of the lessons and making sure that they are appropriate and accurate for the rollout in the fall. So we are definitely utilizing programming K through 12 essentially at all levels of our schools to make sure we combat some of these issues. But we know, based on these Title IX survey results, there's definitely still more work to be done. So in addition to that program, we also have our family life teachers that are doing some work as well. So Ms. Newman or Ms. Tucker, can you unmute to talk about some of that work?
I would love to. So we teach grades 5 through 8, and it's also an opt-in program It's an opt-in program. And in all grades 5 through 8, we talk about healthy relationships, consent, assertive communication techniques to protect body autonomy, and ways to report, including talking to a safe, trusted adult, ethics 360, and say something. And so those are consistent throughout all the grades that we talk about those. And this is also because it's family life education and a comprehensive sex ed program. I just kind of pulled out the topics that pertain to this. But we do have a lot of topics that we have to cover in a short amount of time. In 6th grade, we go into gender roles and stereotypes, where we brainstorm stereotypes and talk about how we don't need to fit in any particular box. Autonomy, personal space, again, consent and reporting. And in 7th and 8th grade, we have really introduced some of the LGBTQ topics, which were Title IX approved in January of 2021. And so we did implement them in January of 2021. But in particular, we talk about the definitions and the difference between sex assigned at birth, gender identity, and sexual orientation, and what those are, and what it means to be an ally to the LGBTQ community. And then in 8th grade, in 7th grade, we do talk about sexual harassment and what it is and defined and how to report. In 8th grade, we also discuss teen dating violence and add that in. But one thing I really want to note that I've noticed is that all middle school students are aware of the Say Something app. And there's posters. I feel like there's, all the hallways have posters. It's really a great job promoting that. But almost none of our children are aware of Ethics 360. So that's something worth noting that maybe we need to do, not sure how, but do a better job, because I honestly feel like the only way that they're hearing about Ethics 360 as a reporting tool is in the stepping stones and then the My Life class also, if they're signed up for these classes.
Yeah, I was teaching at Holly Shelter a few weeks ago, and it was the same thing. They knew about Say Something, but there was only a few kids that knew of Ethics 360, and then we had to kind of go through it, like, it's on your school website. This is what it is. Right. But and it was just like a one or two student that knew it. And so we kind of talked about trusted adults a little, like, where can you go find this, and like led that. But other than that, it was new to a lot of kids.
Yeah. And I think, part of it could be the fact that, in the middle schools in particular last year, we weren't live and in the middle schools at all. It was all online. And so that information was included in our online classes, but did the students, how much did these students access these classes was questionable. But so I feel like that's an area that we could definitely improve upon is making students aware of Ethics 360. Maybe slap some posters up for that.
And perhaps that's something we need to add when we do our next survey. Do you know what Ethics 360 is? Have you ever used it? Do you know what See Something, Say Something is? Have you ever used it? I think that would be good data to have.
Yeah, and that was one thing that we had when we had just some small groups discussions. We were talking about that too. Is that we've done so much awareness training with adults that we may not have done the same awareness with students with that. So yeah, just the easier it is, to report, then the more quickly we can solve, issues that might be out there, festering or, happening. Yeah, and then Joelle wanted us to make a note that we do cover what we just talked about in 5th grade growth and changes.
Yeah,
but again, we might need to hit it a little harder, or from a different way.
So
I do think it needs to be maybe beyond just the family life classes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So piggybacking off of the Ethics 360 reporting, that is something that I've recognized as well. If you walk through a school, particularly middle school, you'll see the Say Something posters all over the place. And so, yeah, a poster campaign is something that I recognize we could utilize for Title IX and for ethics, and I've even put it in the budget for the fall. So hopefully we'll see posters similar to that in middle school and high school in all schools for ethics and Title IX in general.
So overall, Jarrell, did you have another speaker? I'm sorry.
No, that was it. Thank you everyone for that information.
Can I talk one more opportunity for improvement also moving forward is I would love to see in every middle school, high school, potentially elementary school, a GSA club for the students. I think that would be great. I know we have a pretty strong one at Roland Grice that's been really successful. And I think it's really helpful to the kids in that community. They love it. They love it so much. And I feel like it's such a safe space for them. So I think that might be a great opportunity for improvement.
Yes,
I think that Laney High School might have one of those, or they did back when my son was in school. Yeah, that's.
I mean, I know Hoggard has one, but it would be.
Myrtle Grove tried to start one too, but
yeah, I feel did it not? I feel like
the teacher just didn't know the right steps, and we talked about it a little bit, but it just then COVID hit. But it was just the teacher was passionate about starting the group. But I mean, that would just agree 100%.
I do as well. Perfect world, if every school could have a GSA, that'd be super awesome. I know that some schools do. I know I've spoken with some staff members about their interest, wanting to know what they can and can't do. I think that's another area where individuals are kind of concerned about, what they can and can't do. So I've been letting them know that. So I'm trying to figure out a way that we can, like an interest meeting for staff at each respective school for starting a GSA. Maybe we can do this in an organized fashion, but I think a GSA is a really good tool to help with the environment at our schools, particularly related to these gender issues.
Well, and I'm making notes of all these things that, these great suggestions. And we'll talk more about this later on in the meeting, but this all can come under our equity, diversity, and inclusion work, so that we are, working hand in hand with all kinds of opportunities to bring in the student voice and a teacher voice that wants to help facilitate the student voice. I mean, these are just great suggestions for, plans for going forward.
I would like to speak on that if you don't mind. Since you brought it up, I was going to talk about it at the end, but I just to add to that is definitely something that, the EDI committee, and now especially that it's part of our, a pillar of our strategic plan going forward. We have a new chief equity officer, and we're going to have a whole department that is going to be dedicated to doing a lot of this work. And also we have just, kind of reorganized the EDI committee and how it works. We have various subcommittees that work on a lot of this stuff, and a lot of things and ideas that y'all mentioned here are going to be wonderful things to look at and start implementing through your subcommittee work through EDI. So I'm glad you said that, because I'm writing all these notes down too. I have way notes. We're going to get together and really have a look at our notes together so we can look at these strategies in alignment with a lot of the EDI work going forward. And they're definitely the best place for it. I know EDI is definitely looking at putting components of parent and student voice in there as kind of arms to the EDI committee as well, to bring more of the conversation into, bring in the good ideas that, like some of the things that you guys have mentioned today. So I appreciate you talking about that. That is definitely something we are going to work on together.
Does New Hanover County Schools have any sort of relationship with the LGBTQIA Center of Cape Fear?
Was that formerly the Frank Carr Institute?
Yes.
So informally, I went to their opening when they changed their name, and I've also gone to a couple of other community groups with some partners to try to increase awareness about what we can do to help these students. But we don't have a formal partnership. However, in speaking about training for staff and students and things like that related to gender, that's the first group that I have in mind locally.
I was also thinking that perhaps we should invite them to have a representative on this committee, and they might also be able to help the school with resources for those GSA clubs and how to get that started, how to have good guidelines, because all of that information is out there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you, Leslie. I'm seeing a comment from Jenna about, it says, can I ask for some clarification around the difference in purpose between Ethics 360 and See Something, Say Something platforms? Are both highly utilized by students? Obviously, we've just heard that one is highly utilized, one is not. Do you think we could get some feedback from students on if they need clarification around this?
So I can answer that.
Yeah, thanks, Julie.
It's a great question, and we have offered that clarity in the past. So the Say Something anonymous reporting system, so it's, the acronym for that, SSARS, Say Something anonymous reporting system, it was created for students to use and for them to generate any reports of anything that they felt like needed to be shared with an adult, whether it's safety related, whether it's just, honestly, I can tell you some of the ones that we've gotten recently. There was a bus driver that wasn't wearing their mask, or, I'm concerned about the safety of my friend because they've been saying concerning things about whether they want to live. So it kind of runs the gamut. So it could be the report of bullying, anything that a student wanted to report. And then those move through that is a project funded through Sandy Hook Promise, and the state gives us the option to use that. It runs through 911 dispatch. There are crisis counselors that receive them. There's back and forth communication in the app. So a kid never has to provide their identity, but if they want to, they can. So that's one. Ethics 360 was not created specifically to be a tool that students would use to report concerns, but they can. So we put it in one of the roles. So it can be a student, a parent, a community member, a staff member, however. And that was created to be an overall hub of complaints and concerns so that there was an official log, and it could also be anonymous. And it says, here's your PIN number. If you want to tell us who you are, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And we can communicate in the site. So, one was geared more toward adults, and one was geared more toward kids, but kids can certainly use either one. And we've also had adults use Say Something. We've had parents that would log in to Say Something and say, this is a concern I have. So they're not mutually exclusive. But like Lisa Brenner put in the comments, we annually provide training for students and staff on the use in middle and high school on the use of Say Something, and then also have the posters and the reminders and that kind of thing. With Ethics 360, we haven't had that level of dedication to it because it really was an additional place that they could log concerns, but Say Something is really the one that was designed for them.
Thank you for clarifying that, because this is all, it's not new, but it's still pretty new, in general, especially now that we're back in school full time. When you're out of school full time, a lot of this stuff, you don't even have the opportunity to really see as much. So that's definitely on a to-do list.
All right. So
I did want to just go back to, since Julie said about Lisa made a comment. So she was talking about the middle school and high schoolers are required to train students yearly on See Something, Say Something. So that might be one of the reasons that students know how to use it. And then also that we offer youth mental health first aid training for staff. And that's been going on for, a number of years, but I think, just a lot of renewed interest and support of that program. Back in the olden days, it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're taking one more thing. But now it's like, it's pretty much critical that, we all know that. So, okay. Does anybody have any more comments about the survey or things that you gleaned from, going through on your own with that? You say them now, or, feel free to send an email to Jarrell or Stephanie Walker or myself, that we can just, start, we can keep track, of the thing of where we want to go, with that. So that kind of leads us into actually, I'll wait. Does anybody have, now that I'm just blabbing, does anybody have anything they want to add since I've asked you? Okay, I don't see anything in the chat. So that leads us into the next, next meeting, next steps kind of thing. I alluded to it. Stephanie Walker, filled in on it, and so the three of us were talking, and also talking with Dr. Smith, who has joined us on the call or has been with us on Zoom, is that we're thinking that we need to marry up a little bit, with our two groups, and not to, marry us up. And then so format, not to be decided, but Dr. Smith was going to call us all together to talk about what that union might look like. So I don't know if we need to talk much more about it, because we wanted to right at this point, but just wanted to, have folks thinking about how we might benefit, Title IX committee and EDI committee, and the new Office of Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, might benefit from putting ourselves, together in a more unified way. So, Jarrell, did you want to add anything about that?
Yeah, I would just say that, so now that we have a Chief Equity Diversity Officer and for the district, I think that creates an opportunity for us to expand that work. We've already been doing this work in a subsection under Title IX, but in reality, Title IX is equities, it's civil rights work. And so now that we've elevated equity and the focus on that in our district, particularly with hiring a Chief Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Officer, I thought it was important for us to continue to expand that work and make sure that we have a cross-functional team that's tackling these issues, and so that we're not one group A is doing this work over here, one group B is doing this other work over here, and not communicating with each other. So I definitely thought that it would be best moving forward if we expand the work of the EDI with Title IX. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a meeting about that on March 10th. So we're inviting all of you all as members of the Title IX committee to our March 10th special meeting with EDI and Title IX to talk about what that looks like moving forward. It just makes the most sense since we have an equity office moving forward, because all of this work is equity work, all of this work is civil rights work. And that way we will be able to look at all of these equity issues in our district with all the appropriate partners at the table at the same time.
Can I add something to that, Jarrell?
Yes,
just as an aside, you said it beautifully. It really is a natural progression. And also it'll help us be able to drill down a lot of issues, because, EDI committee also has a component with the EDI work group, which are a lot of people that work in the district as well, and it just helps us kind of put together more, probably better ways to do this work, where we're kind of closer to the sources of people that are in the district that can see the data, draw the data, and just kind of, set goals and strategies, something we can measure, all the SMART goals that we can measure, and we can turn around later on and look at, see if we've accomplished them. We've done the survey, which was I think a milestone for our district. And I think that we can continue a lot of the work that needs to be implemented under EDI. And, Dr. Smith is going to be able to talk more on that at the March meeting, but it is a general, I've tried to integrate some of the Title IX work as well over this past year. And it feels like the natural place for it to sit. So hopefully we can, like Joel says, marry the two together and just, get down to the work that some of the suggestions I've written down today are going to be absolutely great strategies to work on underneath the committee going forward.
And so I would just say, so we don't have, all the details worked out, but we definitely are inviting you to the March 10th meeting to work on some of those things. What this looks like, when does this happen? So if anyone's concerned, we don't have all the answers right now. We just know that we want to do this. So the March 10th meeting, a time, let me see what my calendar says really quickly.
Have we even, I thought that, I think that Dr. Smith was going to coordinate for us and get the announcement out to us. Is that right, Dr. Smith? If you're Dr. LaShawn Smith, just in case there's another Dr. We have so many Dr. Smiths in our school system now.
Yeah, it is. The meeting's on March 10th. It'll be a face-to-face meeting at the Board of Education Center from 5 to 6:30.
Okay, perfect.
And that invitation should go out probably tomorrow morning, if not this evening.
Right. We wanted to make sure that we had informed you all first as a committee. So we'll send out the invite very soon.
And again, if you have any other comments, you're welcome to call any of us, but, just encourage you just to be thinking about what this looks like. And then, let's work out some details on March the 10th.
There was a question about, will it be through Zoom as well?
And that's, thank you for that question. This one coming up is going to be in person. And I believe that our school system is trying to move back to a lot of more face-to-face meetings instead of doing Zooms and live streaming. So any comments on that, if it would prohibit you from participating? But we're just trying to get back to what our sense of normalcy, where we can actually look at each other, talk with each other, gather together, and then it's much easier to work in subgroups, when we're all together, rather than trying to do, like breakout rooms and separate things here and there. So be thinking about all of that as well. And your feedback is definitely welcomed and valued.
All right. Any other thoughts about everything today? If not, we'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to Ms. Walker for closing.
Thank you, Jarrell. I feel like I've said everything I was going to say, I had written down to say, but again, I just wanted to reiterate, we have our meeting on March 10th. I think, I'm really hopeful going forward that we're going to really be able to drill down a lot of issues, not just, what have been typically separately EDI issues, but also Title IX as well. We've got a great office, Title IX office in you, Jarrell, and our investigator. I feel like, I agree with Stephanie Crable on the fact that some of this stuff is still pretty new. COVID kind of threw a lot of stuff off, but I think going forward, we're going to really be doing some great work. And like I said, adding that parent voice and the student voice in there to really help us, make sure we're as well-rounded as we can. And, the trainings are helpful, and all the expertise and all the things that you guys have brought to us to make the survey successful has been you should feel really good about that, because I feel like going forward, we can take these surveys and we can really find out what we can do to help students. Because in the end, that's really what we're trying to do. We want to help, make the lives of our students better, meet them where they are, find out what they need, and hopefully, prevent some of the things that we're seeing happen that we saw from the results of the survey. We really do want to just be there for students. So I just wanted to thank you all again very much for all your expertise and all the work you put into the survey. We feel really good about it going forward, and hopefully March 10th we can kind of drill down on the things that we want to do going forward with under EDI and our strategic plan. So be ready for that with questions. Thank you.
Yeah, that great closing, bringing us home, Stephanie, if you have any comments, things that you've heard, about the survey from start to finish, that you didn't mention today or that comes up, later, please feel free to just, email any of the three of us, or and let's just keep our running list of things that we need to, keep on the forefront. But yeah, again, thank you all for coming and hanging with us, and we'll see you all on the 10th.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.